what made you want to become a lawyer, and describe your law school experience?
I don't know. A couple of things, I guess, brought me to that. One was tobacco. I wanted to get out of the field and not do that. I grew up on a farm, and I thought there's a better way. And then in my community, there were only 3 lawyers in a small town, one of whom was the chief judge of the Court of Appeals. And they were just people that the community looked up to, and they solved people's problems, and it just seemed like a great profession for a farm kid.
And tell us about law school.
Law school was interesting. My lackluster academic career at undergraduate school led me to have to take a roundabout way to get there, and I went to business school first, and then I went the first year of law school in Vermont and transferred back to Campbell in the charter class and finished up. And that was a great group of folks. The charter class at Campbell were really mostly folks who had worked in other fields for a few years and had gone back to law school, and it was a fun group to be in school with.
And tell us, what does it mean for you to have been in that charter class?
It's just I don't know. It was very rewarding. I mean, many of the people in there went on to be judges, and we were sort of the guinea pigs of the legal field at the time, because it was the first new law school in decades in North Carolina, and it was a scramble. We didn't know what kind of lawyers the school would produce, and some went on to be judges and United States attorneys, and held very responsible positions, and it was a great group of folks to be in school with.
And was it important to you to come back home, to be in North Carolina?
It was. I went to Vermont just for 1 year, but it was freezing cold, and for an Eastern North Carolina kid, that was helped make my decision. I needed to be back here.
And just take us through your career. I think you've had a lot of it in the spotlight, and we know what you've done. But take us through early days going through.
Well, I actually went to business school before I went to law school. I worked with a mortgage banking firm, and that was in the mid-'70s in a real estate crash, and most of the things that we were doing were winding up in litigation, and it just seemed like that the law would be a great way to do that. And I went to law school thinking I'd be a corporate lawyer and handle business transactional matters, and just took a different path along the way. Some would say got misled, but it was it was an interesting career.
So you finished that, then what year did you graduate law school?
I finished in 1979.
Then take us through after that.
I went to work with a solo practitioner in Wake County, a fellow named Gerald Bass, who was a wonderful mentor and helped me learn about the practice of law. And then about 4 years later, the district attorney took a leave of absence for health reasons here in Wake County, and Governor Hunt appointed me to be the acting district attorney during the summer of 1983, and so I did that, and then went back in private practice, and it whetted my interest, and I ran for the job of district attorney in 1986 and got elected.
And talk to us about the changing, not just the changing legal landscape, but the changing landscape of Wake County that you've seen during your law career.
Well, it's just been, our community has been blessed with tremendous growth. I mean, we've had wonderful economic growth here in this area. It's provided so much opportunity for people who were here, or people like me that were just migrant workers and came here looking for a career. And so we've the growth of the Research Triangle Park and the city of Raleigh and Wake County has been provided tremendous opportunities, but it's also brought challenges of how to deal with a county that's probably quadrupled or more since I moved here in the 70s, and so we have to deal with the issues of having so many more people.
And when you think back on like that law firm where you started back then, and then the difference.
Back then, many of the lawyers in Wake County operated in small or solo practices, and they did most represented most clients that came through the door. I mean, they might close a loan, they might draw a will that afternoon, they might go search a title, they go to traffic court, they might be appearing before the city council on a zoning matter, but they just did a wide array of different things. And during the changes particularly in the 80s and 90s, I think our profession moved a lot more towards specialization, sort of some people that sought training and certification as specialists, some who just gravitated, and this person tended to do criminal work, or this person tended to do real estate, or this person handled estates. But I saw a much greater move to specialization in the urban areas. Rural areas, I think, still people had a wider array of their practice.
And tell as a Campbell alum, as a charter, talk about that move from Campbell to Raleigh.
I think it was really good and was very insightful by the leadership of the university. We were one of the few state capitals without a law school. I think it filled a great niche here, and it also put the law school students here in a better position to work, do internships with law firms and in government, and help them in their quest to go out in the profession once they graduated from law school. I think so it really was a tremendous advantage when they moved the law school to Wake County.
And talking about, I asked you about the changes of going from early in your career. Now talk about technology and its change.
It's phenomenal. I mean, when I started practicing law in the late 70s, mag card typewriters that did repeating typing were the cutting edge of technology, and we still had whiteout and carbon paper and things like that. And our technology has just been made tremendous strides, and it's allowed lawyers to do so much more. I mean, so much easier and better to have communication with clients, so much quicker to be able to be responsive and deal with other lawyers, the ability to send documents and correspondence back and forth instantaneously. I mean, those kind of things have really helped the profession.
And seeing the birth of e-courts and
It is. I mean, I think we've recognized that we can't continue to be a paper-driven industry, and we really must have more electronic information available, and our courts are moving in that direction. It's a challenge because we didn't start from the beginning. It's kind of like trying to shoe a running horse. We were operating the courts, and all of a sudden, we switched from things being on paper to things being electronic, and we're going to have growing pains and other pains just making that transition.
And the changes to the DA's office through the years. Tell us about that.
When I started, we had about 350,000 people in Wake County, and we were about 15 assistant DAs. When I left in 2014, the county had tripled to 1 million people or a little more, and the office had tripled to almost to 43 or 4 prosecutors. We were prosecuting cases and things that were not even in the law, all types of fraud and cyber stalking and things that just didn't exist when I started back in the 80s. People have much better training now. We have better equipment. Our AOC and our Wake County have both helped in upgrading that. So we're able to operate much better. We went from rotary dial telephones to high-speed computers during that time, so it really was quite a change.
And talk about, you've always been part of the Bar Association. Tell us, being part of the Bar Association and that collegiality and being with your peers, tell us about that experience and what that's meant for your legal career.
It had immeasurable benefit to me, both personally and professionally. When I started in the late 70s, most folks were got involved in the organized bars, the Wake County Bar Association or the North Carolina Bar Association. Our, socials that we had were some of the highlights. We socialized with other lawyers. And even though this was a large bar in Wake County and still is perhaps the biggest bar in the state, it led to a lot of collegiality, and it made it easier to practice law. Your friends just naturally tended to be other lawyers. You did things, worked with them during the week, and you did things on the weekend with them and their families. I really think it was great. I think young lawyers benefit tremendously from both the guidance and the camaraderie of that, the learning how to practice law, developing friendships and people that understand the stresses and difficulties that you have. I think young lawyers that don't get involved really miss out, and I think older lawyers and big firms should certainly encourage their younger and newer lawyers to participate in the organized bar.
And I want to talk a little bit about, we've asked everybody about mentorship and the importance of that in your career. And can you tell us the importance of having a mentor, like when you look back to those early days, and then, looking behind you and becoming the mentor? Tell us about that experience.
It was really fortunate. I was fortunate to have lots of people that were helpful and they're kind and sharing. When I started practicing, even what then were the giants in the bar would take the time, folks like Wade Smith and Robert McMillan and folks like that Roger Smith would take the time to spend with young lawyers and talk to you about problems. And I think and they didn't have to have a special program. They just did it. They felt like it was part of their job and part of their responsibility to the profession to help other folks. And then in the district attorney's office, we were had a natural tendency where we had new young lawyers coming in all the time and more experienced people, and they gravitated because when you start practicing, you really need someone to help you and explain things to you, and it's not exactly the way it was in the books.
And what's your, when you see these, well, first I'll ask you this. Describe the changes to these young, like the differences you see from when you were there to these classes coming out of Campbell now and these young lawyers starting out now. What differences do you see?
Oh, God, they're so much smarter now. They really are, and they've done so well over there. We would have benefit in the district attorney's office of having interns from Central and Campbell and UNC, and every year they just got better and better. Smarter kids, energetic, wanting to be involved and take on responsibility. So I really think the law schools have done a great job of attracting and bringing out good lawyers and people that are very bright and able to do well in our profession.
And you just, as you're at this point in your career and say you go to a Campbell commencement or you go to the law school for something or you come to the swearing in or whatever, when you see these new lawyers at the swearing in, what goes through your heart when you see them?
I think about how exciting it is to be young and to be there learning and getting new things, to getting the opportunity to do something new and different. And I think about how exciting it was for me and my colleagues when we were all young to take on something new and have new opportunities. And I think about how much fun it's going to be for these lawyers. And I hope that their experience in the law is like mine has been. I mean, sometimes I think I was there during the golden years when it was just a wonderful time to be a lawyer in the 70s and 80s and 90s and 2000s. And I hope that it's that way for our new lawyers.
And what would you say when you think back on your career and you think back on what moment makes you the most proud or what thing makes you the most proud?
I don't know. During some of our natural disasters, some of our bar across the state have jumped in and helped when a courthouse gets flooded in Hyde County and Swan Quarter and the books are underwater, lawyers jumped in to help out. When we've had disasters in the mountains or hurricanes down east, those kind of things, people in our profession have stepped in to help their sisters and brothers in the law and help the court system. And that's just, speaks volumes.
And as we continue to do these interviews, who do you think, for the Centennial, who do you think we should interview?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. I think it would be good to get not only, gray-haired folks like me, but I think some young lawyers who are starting out or early in their 5 or 10 years in their career to get their impressions and what they think of the future and how they view the profession and what we should be doing. We've got to look to these bright young lawyers for guidance of how to continue to be able to be a self-regulating profession and to meet the currently unmet needs for legal services, particularly in the civil side. We've just got so many people that need legal services but are not getting them because of the unavailability or the expense. And we've got to figure out ways to meet those challenges for our profession.
And that leads me into my last question is, okay, so this is for the Centennial, and we're interviewing all of you seasoned lawyers, like you said, gray hair, so those folks, former Branch Award winners, former past WCBA presidents through the years. In 20 years, right, when we are having the Wake County Bar Association 120th celebration, who are we interviewing then?
Hopefully some folks who aren't even in our profession yet, some new lawyers who have come in, who have engaged in the community, who have done things to help their community, their churches, their schools, folks who we recognize are our leaders of that day and will be our leaders in the future. Those are the folks that we ought to be looking at for guidance and inspiration and ideas about how we need to tackle some of the problems that we'll have in our society.